Hello and welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast. I hope you are very well. We've got an exciting episode today. I suppose as we are in Q4, people's minds start to turn to next year, 2024 in this case, and people start thinking about, who do they want to be? Where do they want to sit? What's the kind of vibe? What do they want to achieve? So we're going to do some episodes that kind of really sit with that topic and help you to go through that. I think this will be a nice, really useful resource for you to utilize as the weeks go on. Kicking this off then, this week we are talking about how to stand out in your industry in 2024. How do you be unique? How do you actually be an industry leader? How do you really look desirable to the people that you're trying to talk with? And ultimately that's important, right? That might not be the ultimate aim, but we do want our ideal clients to want to work with us, and therefore we have to pay attention and put some thought process in how we're going to do that. Because in a sea, of competition is huge, and your ability to stand out online has been both exacerbated and extended. You do have to take conscious moves to make yourself stand out. You can't just assume that you're going to post content or have an amazing website or just think that you're miraculously going to stand out, because sadly, that doesn't happen currently. So let's talk about stand out in your industry. The reason it's important is that if you want sort of effortless, consistent, easy sales, ultimately that's a marketing game. Ultimately, it is a how do you fill your funnel, how do you get people through your funnel, and how do you convert them? And what makes that really easy is if you have a strong brand, if you have a clear understanding of who you are, what do you do, what do you stand for value wise, what do you stand for value proposition wise? Like there's a whole host of different bits and pieces that are involved in that. But you also need to understand that it's super possible to stand out. I think a lot of people think like, oh, I can't really stand out in this day and age. And it's like, yeah, well, you need to understand what your definition of standing out is. You don't need to be sort of like over here at like point 100 and everyone else be at point 50. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how do you have an edge? How do you have something that people are therefore interested in? The reason that most people don't stand out is that they don't actually give themselves enough time to establish what it is that they're trying to work on. So they either first of all don't understand how they're trying to stand out, but then also they don't give themselves enough time in that execution process to see it actually pay off, because this isn't an overnight thing and it's going to take time. The other thing I want to just drop in here, and this isn't to shame anybody, but it's just to maybe give a reason as to why you might not feel like you stand out currently, or why, you feel like you are at the kind of cusp of an industry that's just full of everybody doing what you do, is that there's actually a lot of like really lazy business owners. People are just lazy. And that's okay. Human beings are lazy. We purposely, it keeps us happy, right? It keeps us well, it keeps us safe. I'm not shitting on that, but I am saying that standing out in your industry is a conscious decision. It's a conscious move that you decide that you're going to be different, or that you're going to be leading, or you're going to somehow bring a value that is a set above the rest. And in order to do that, I'd say 99% of the time, it's very sort of energy inducing, because you have to be conscious of it. And therefore, being lazy doesn't really work. So if you're sat there thinking, actually, this definitely isn't for me, then that's fine. You can build your business in a different way. You don't have to do what I'm about to say. You don't have to be this standout. But this episode is for people who do want to do that, and who want to make sales very easily, and for sales to become fun again. So the first thing you need to work out is, what are you actually saying? Most people they can't give me a full answer on that. If I say to you, what are you actually saying? What does your brand say? What is the like business? What's the point of it? What does it say? What are you actually saying to people? Get really clear on that. Because anybody who does any job could say millions of different things. For me, for example, there is millions of people probably. I don't know if it's millions, but probably there's at least 100,000 people do what I do. Might even be more. I don't know. Now, everybody has something to say on the matter, and that's great. But you've got to pick what it is that you actually want to say. So I choose to speak to people who are really ambitious. I speak to women, yeah? I speak and talk about the fact that scaling can be fun, scaling can be good, scaling is life-changing, financial mobility is possible. I talk about things that hopefully inspire people to want to take action, hopefully get them fired up to be like, you know what, yeah, I can do this. That's a whole set of sort of things that I push, and that beliefs that I push, values that I instill, belief systems that we try and show as possible rather than just saying. I could choose to market and position the brand in a million other different ways. And none of them are right or wrong, but it's about you understanding what are you actually saying. And going back to that example I've just given you, what the most obvious thing for people to say would be like, I can help you grow your business. But that's not really what we talk about. Yes, it is in the sense of like, ultimately that's the result. But in terms of what we talk about around it, it's not really as basic as that. We just actually talk about other outside factors. We talk a lot about people's lives, yeah, chronic illness, understanding what are people's capabilities, how can I create them a business that really sits in the situation of where they're at. That's what makes it interesting. And so I want you to think about like, what are you actually saying? And then how are you saying it? And the how are you saying it piece is really important, because how you say something is the special sauce. It's the stuff that really sits with people. And that is why some of the best speakers in the world, some of the people who are so at the top of the game, work on every day is nailing communication and nailing how they purvey information and they send it from them to whoever the audience is. And that is a lifelong journey. That's something I'm always working on. It's something that everybody, I think, always is conscious of. How are you saying something? Because we know 100 people could say the same thing, and how they say it massively changes which person would take from it. If you had 100 people in a room, who would actually take anything from it? Who would just be like, I don't even know what they're saying? That all comes down to delivery and how you are saying it. You also then need to look at, what are you known for right now? Like, what do people know you for now? And what do you want to be known for in 12 months or in 5 years? And really understanding that is key. Like, what are you actually known for? Is there a gap there? Do they both match up? How are you going to change people's understanding of what you're known for? And that is easier than you think. I think a lot of people think once you attach to something that you can't change. You can. It just means that you have to verbalize it yourself over and over and over again, publicly, online or offline, or in some kind of marketing capacity, multiple times a week or multiple times a day. Next thing, you need to understand, what does innovation mean to you in your business? This is really important. So innovation is something that really is synonymous with standing out in your industry. But being known for something is not enough, right? You can't just be known for something, because actually, if I said to you, who do you think of that is a business leader? Like, who is it that talks about business? You could probably name me like 5 to 10 different people who are thought leaders in that space. What makes them more memorable, or what makes them more likely for you to actually want to work with someone, is them having some kind of innovation, some kind of adaptability, some kind of thing that adds a level of nuance to what they do. And that's where you need to understand what you're doing in 2024. What does innovation mean to you and your business? Does it mean anything to you, or does it not? Innovation, like at May James, is like, we are constantly looking at new things. We're constantly looking at new situations, what is happening, what's happening in the business space, what's happening with software, what happens internally. We look a lot of innovation around team and what does that mean for people? Innovation in our programs and our service and our offerings. Like, innovation is a core part of what we do at May James. Now, innovation for us, the definition of innovation is different from what an innovation definition would be if you are a tech company, for example. And this is another thing where you need to get clear on, what does certain words mean for your organization and for your business. Because when I talk about innovation at May James, it's a very different conversation than when I'm talking about innovation with a client who's in a certain sector or certain industry. Again, that's not right or wrong. It's just you need to understand what that is. Once you've thought through some of these pointers, I then need you to think about, does your brand need to shift? Often the answer is yes. So sometimes you're like, okay, we've done this year. What's the shift for the brand? And there is nothing wrong with this. I would argue that in order to be really forward thinking, you do want to be shifting your brand because people do want to see you moving with the times. They do want to see you constantly changing stuff and moving stuff forward. So, where does the brand need to shift? Does it need to shift? Is it working out for you? The other thing to think about is how can you be different by looking at industry trends? So, industry trends exist and they exist, pretty much in all industries, and they're constantly changing. And some industry trends change daily and others will change, every 5, 10, 20 years. It depends what industry you're in. You have a decision to make. You can lean into industry trends, which in itself can help you stand out, or you can be different and completely go away from it. And both of them can actually give you a real leverage point, depending on how you do it. So, for example, Gary Vee, who many of you will understand and know of, he leans into different industry trends, and that's what makes him very current all of the time. Because whenever there's an industry trend, people turn to Gary to know what's the situation, what's the setup. Like, he's going to know. People just assume he's going to have an opinion, he's going to have a voice, he's going to have a game plan. He's positioned himself very well in order to be able to do that and has actually lent into industry trends. A lot of people will think that I'm saying don't lean into industry trends because they're ever changing, and that means that inevitably you're sort of working on something that potentially could be sort of dead tomorrow. But there's strategic ways of doing it so that it always works out for you. So for Gary Vee, for example, it works very well for him. But there's also other voices where they purposely choose to completely unalign themselves to whatever the industry trend is, which is the piece that helps them stand out. Again, I hope that this episode is helping you understand that there's no right or wrong here. It's about you deciding where do you want to sit on that fence, what do you want your stance to be, but understand how can you be different or how can you lean into industry trends. Identifying industry trends would be a first point of call, and going through and saying, well, do we like any of these? Do any of these work for us? What's the nuance there? What's the connection that links all them together? What are industry trends going to be in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time? There's many different things you can look at to help with that. The next point is around, are you ready to be agile? If you are really serious about standing out in 2024 and you really want to position yourself and your messaging to stand out and to be a leader, you're going to have to be prepared to be agile, because ultimately, whatever you plan now, we don't know the full extent of what the space is going to look like in 12 months' time. We never do, and we never will. And that's really exciting. So if you are really agile, you're going to win. If you're a stubborn person and a stubborn leader who will refuse to just go with the flow and understand that you're going to have to be adaptable, you will get left behind and it will become a real drag for you, and you will dread it because every time something happens and something new comes out, you're going to be like, oh, like, I really don't want this to be the case. So I really want to encourage you to adopt an agile mindset, to really add a level of like, yes, I can do this. This is really fun. This is really exciting. And be known for something. Be known for something that adds something to your life and to others' lives. And that comes from you being really clear in what your messaging is, what your positioning is. Those two areas are so core and important. And remembering that whatever you do in your business, whatever the output or the result is rarely actually what your messaging is going to be. Your messaging is going to be something else that helps people understand the first initial bit of what is it that you do. So I thought, let's actually have a think about how does this work in practice? Because actually some of you might be start thinking, well, this all sounds great, but I don't really get, is this possible? Well, it is possible, because I have clients who we do this with, right? We have clients who will be like, this is really saturated, I need to sell this thing, or this is really this, and how do we get this? And we've done that for a number of different people over the last couple of years to really help them, one, recognize their strength in their space, and then two, be able to communicate that with others and make money from that. There is one client who really niched into their space and carved out a piece that hadn't really been carved out before, but did so in a way that meant that it left it flexible, but it also meant that she now is booked for speaking gigs, is the go-to person on a specific point of call in her industry because of how she positioned herself. How she did it was she kept her business going, that was her like main bread and butter stuff, and she added this other business to the mix, and she sort of built up over time this other piece of the business that really allowed her to test out the bases we've just talked about, to test out, what was she saying? Was that connecting with the people she wanted to connect with? Did that make commercial sense? And as she did that over time, she then realized, like, oh, wow, this makes sense and this doesn't. And has really stepped into a space where she is the person that people ring up and people contact and say, hi, will you come and speak on this? Will you do this? Can you do that? That helps her stand out. And, part of that was a real conscious decision. Part of it inevitably is subconscious, because often we can't, unless you can see a clear path of someone that's done it before you, often you can't fully grasp the potential in something, the potential, the opportunity, the potential impact for your life and for the people around you's lives. If you are someone who wants to do this next year, maybe you're someone who's like, do you know what, actually, I do need to stand out, or this year has been tricky in terms of getting people over the line, or getting that kind of edge to be in the business, getting the brand to really feel fresh and feel like, bang, this is it. Come and join Maze Accelerator. Maze Accelerator is a container where people can come, and they come with a goal, and we work together for 6 months or longer. Some people have stayed in there for as long as it's been running. And we then help to actually do the things that you need to do in order to make sure that your messaging, your positioning, your sales, your marketing is actually moving you to being a standout industry leader, or just even making the sales piece easier, because you actually have everything in place that it's really clear for someone to find you and be like, yes, I'm going to buy from you, and yes, this is how that's going to work. If that's something that is on your goal board and is something that you're really thinking, yeah, do you know what, I want to really fully explore, Maze Accelerator can be a nice space for you to do that, because exploration is really important. And ultimately what this is, that it's a constant test and a constant tweak. It's not about you finding a solution and just bang, having it, and that's it for forevermore. Maze Accelerator is opening for enrollment. It will kick off and start in January of 2024. Feel free to come and have a conversation with me about that. You can visit www.mayjames.com/MA, which stands for Maze Accelerator. It is linked below, and you can have a look at what's going on and what the program is. But ultimately, it's a high touch, close access to me, small group program for amazingly ambitious businesswomen who are on a journey to create something. And people are across different industries, they're across different stages of business, but they're all very clear on what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. And we ultimately together help achieve them. So I will leave you. Next week, we have another episode, and it's another one in the series of kind of getting you prepared for 2024 and getting clear on what's going on and how are you going to make sure that you're ahead of the game. So make sure you tune in. Please share this episode if you've enjoyed it. Tag me on Instagram at may.james_. Leave a review. Please leave a review. We don't really get many reviews. I'd like a review. Give us 5 stars and write a little comment. If you would, I'd very much appreciate that. Take care and have a great week. I will speak to you on the next episode. Bye.